President al-Sharaa is pragmatic. He is a thinking man. It is expected that the United States will continue to have a strong relationship, a strong presence in North and East Syria. Ever since President al-Sharaa came into power, he has never said a single word against the United States. There's a reason why. They will all tell you that America's best partner against terror has been the Syrian Democratic Forces. The people of North and East Syria will benefit most when the leaders here are in cooperation with the leaders in Damascus. The opinion of President Trump matters the most. President Trump has decided that President al-Sharaa will be a good and strong partner in the fight against ISIS. In the past year, there have been extraordinary changes in the Middle East. Some of these changes we could predict, and some were not predictable. As we're sitting here today in Qamishli, Syria, 1 year ago was the ouster of the dictator Bashar al-Assad. Now in Syria, there is new leadership in Damascus under President al-Sharaa, and this country is looking forward to rebuilding and being brought into the global economy, and now is participating in the global coalition to defeat ISIS. We've also seen the defeat of Hezbollah and the end of the combat operations in Gaza. So these changes are big, and these changes give the Middle East a new opportunity for peace and a new opportunity to be included into the world order. I served in Syria as the spokesman for the global coalition to defeat ISIS in 2019 and 2020. And although I'm speaking for myself today and I'm a former military officer, I can tell you that all of the US and coalition soldiers who served with, who fought ISIS with the Syrian Democratic Forces, they will all tell you that America's best partner against terror has been the Syrian Democratic Forces. In Washington, there's a continued effort to provide training, advice, and assistance and funding for the Syrian Democratic Forces. Just yesterday, December 7th, 2025, the United States Congress published the National Defense Authorization Act. This is a law where Congress determines what the United States will prioritize for military operations, and it will also describe what operations will be funded. So in the National Defense Authorization Act, there are two sections that talk directly about supporting the SDF and supporting the SDF for its ongoing fight against ISIS, and also examining the status of the prisons where there are more than 9,000 detainees. So it is expected that the United States will continue to have a strong relationship, a strong presence in North and East Syria, but also the US is beginning to coordinate operations with the forces under the Syrian transitional government. There have been a few raids and airstrikes in recent weeks that were in areas in northwestern Syria, in the Badia Desert, and near Damascus, and those raids have been joint partnership with the US military and the military of the Syrian transitional government. What is important to remember is that the United States is the single military that can help combine all groups. There are the Syrian transitional government forces are aligned with Turkey, and the SDF has been aligned with the US, but the US is aligned with both sides and will be an important participant in the integration of the Ministry of Defense for Syria. In Washington, opinions are divided on everything. There's always going to be somebody and some expert with an opinion, and a lot of the opinion makers in Washington receive funding from different groups, and that informs their opinion. But what we do know is that the opinion of President Trump matters the most. President Trump has decided that President al-Sharaa will be a good and strong partner in the fight against ISIS, but also for other areas of cooperation. So those who are concerned about America's relationship with President al-Sharaa and President al-Sharaa's background as leader of terrorist organizations, they need to let go of it. It's not going to change, and the decision has been made in the White House. So now we are already seeing military cooperation, and the goal long term is that there is more economic cooperation. And in order for there to be American investors in Syria, there needs to be security. There needs to be security from the coast in Tartus and Latakia all the way to the northeast in Hasaka and Deir ez-Zor. And there will be continued cooperation between Washington, D.C. and Damascus to ensure that the Syrian Ministry of Defense is integrated, and the United States is very concerned about the SDF being a proper partner and included in the Syrian Ministry of Defense. None of us can predict the future. We do not have any crystal balls. We cannot throw bones on the ground and predict the future. But what we can do is go by some signs, some indicators that we see. Ever since President al-Sharaa came into power 1 year ago on December 8th, 2024, he has never said a single word against the United States. He never said, I want America out of Syria. He has been silent or supportive of the U.S. presence in northeastern Syria. There's a reason why. President al-Sharaa is pragmatic. He's a thinking man, and he knows that his forces are not capable of coming into northeastern Syria and keeping the peace. His forces are not capable of containing and detaining the ISIS prisoners and the families at al-Hol. His forces are not capable of running border checkpoints. So he understands that right now the relationship with the US and its security partner, the SDF, is keeping at least 1/3 of Syria safe. Why would anybody want to change that balance? But your question was about the guarantees. What can Kurds say as guarantees? Well, there's no guarantees for anything, but as I mentioned, we've seen now that the United States Congress has put into law that President Trump will eventually review and probably sign, and that includes special specific funding for the Syrian Democratic Forces and the continued presence of U.S. troops in northeastern Syria. There are some things that the Kurdish-led autonomous administration can do to ensure that their sacrifice and efforts against ISIS is not forgotten. One of those things is to continue to be a great and reliable partner with successful missions against ISIS remnants in northeastern Syria and even as far west as Raqqa. That's the thing number one. Continue to prove the success against Daesh. Second thing they can do is continue to talk to the media and explain the intent of the SDF and the autonomous administration's desire to integrate with the Syrian transitional government forces. We have talked previously about the March 10th agreement, and the SDF needs to continue to have messages that are aligned with President al-Shara's messages about cooperation in the future. In Washington, D.C., the Syrian Democratic Council and the representatives of the autonomous administration are continuing their outreach to members of the U.S. Congress and think tanks and the State Department. And it's, we would call it an uphill climb, right? This is a difficult task because the other Syrian groups have a lot of funding. The other Syrian groups have had US citizens for decades, so they are already having strong relationships and access to the White House, members of Congress, and the US State Department. But the autonomous administration must keep talking, it must keep tweeting, and it must show that it wants to be a good partner in the future of Syria. The decisions by the US Congress must be signed into law by President Trump. And then I believe when we have more and more members of the Congress and senior Department of War officials and senior State Department officials coming to North and East Syria, you will see continued cooperation. There's a lot of benefits for the United States with its partnership in northeastern Syria, and one of those big benefits in the future will be having access for American oil companies and gas companies to make investments in the Rumelan area as well as Deir ez-Zor. The National Security Strategy is a 33-page document that was published last week by the Trump administration. And the National Security Strategy is available online. I encourage people to read it. And you will see that the United States is prioritizing the Western Hemisphere. America and its security forces and military are focused on stopping illegal immigrants from coming across America's southern border and capturing illegal immigrants who have stayed in the United States past their visa or should not be in the US. Additionally, we have seen American military taking action in the Caribbean Sea near South America to blow up boats that are bringing drugs to the United States. And this is one of the top areas of President Trump's political focus and now his policy focus. President Trump's has always promoted what he calls peace through strength, having a strong, big military, technologically advanced military that can reach out and strike opponents, but it prefers to not have to go to war, but if it goes to war, it can crush its adversaries. One of the highlights of the Trump administration was Operation Midnight Hammer, where we had these sophisticated B-2 bombers that flew into Iran to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. This is what President Trump and his team like to do. Now, they have a choice. They can say, let's pull the troops out of Syria and claim that they've ended a war, but there are responsible, strategic thinkers inside the Congress and some inside of the Trump administration who are encouraging the president to keep troops in northeastern Syria for the fight against ISIS. It is also important when you have American troops in Iraq and American troops in northeastern Syria. Now you can keep the border safe between both countries, and you are in a position with the American troops at the Al-Tanf garrison where they can prevent Hezbollah from having land access to Lebanon and being able to threaten America's strong ally of Israel. So this thing should stay the same mostly, and I think we may also see that Americans are reducing the number of troops in places like Europe and Asia, but continuing to have a presence of troops in the CENTCOM area, the Middle East and South Asia. The Americans generally lack awareness. Americans are not the best at geography, and even if they can see a map and understand where Syria is, where Jordan is, where Iraq is, they definitely don't understand the difference in ethnic groups and the demographics in these regions. I know this firsthand. I learned so much about Kurdish people during my deployment here in 2019 and 2020. And from having persistent time here, I've grown to understand the cultures, the ethnicities. I even know there are different accents and dialects between the Kurmanji spoken in Afrin and the Kurmanji spoken in Kamishlo. So there are things that people will know, Americans will know, if they spend time learning and reading and being educated. America has more than 330 million people. We don't need everybody to know everything about the people of North and East Syria or the people anywhere in the world, but policymakers need to know. The people who are making decisions on where America spends taxpayer dollars, where America should place economic and security priorities, those people need to be educated on the different groups, the different challenges, and the opportunities in Syria. Kurdish people in Syria and people of North and East Syria, if they have any misperception about Americans, it's that they think that Americans broadly understand the sacrifice of the Kurds, all of the Shaheed who fought ISIS and liberated Syria. Americans either don't know or they forgot because we had so few American troops who were injured or killed in Syria. And this is what would be on the news if American troops were injured and killed in Syria. So Syria will come on the news when there were big missions, for instance, the mission in October 2019 against Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the former so-called caliph of the Islamic State. That made the news in the United States. But there are activities happening every day that are not really getting on TV in the US, and the hopeful and optimistic people of northeastern Syria need to know that Americans definitely like their friends, but Americans in this case just don't have that much education about our friends who have been great partners in the fight against ISIS. I have the good fortune to have good relationships, friendly relationships, and professional relationships with leaders of the Syrian Democratic Forces and the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria. And I have Kurdish friends around the world in Bashur, Bakur, Rojava, Rojalat, and everywhere, United States and Europe and everywhere. While I won't give you my specific advice that I have in conversations that I've had with some of the top leaders here and in Washington, D.C., what I can say is that the people of North and East Syria will benefit most when the leaders here are in cooperation with the leaders in Damascus. And one thing that the leaders in North and East Syria know is that the relationship with America is important. And so continued discussions between leaders of North and East Syria and Ambassador Tom Barrack are important, and there needs to be a strong effort from the leaders of the Democratic Autonomous Administration to reach out and spread their message in Washington, D.C. and through the media. They want to ensure that their people are not left behind and forgotten. There are a lot of pressures, particularly from the neighboring country, who continues to have a foreign minister that is making statements against the SDF. And the General Mazloum has been consistent in his message that he wants his forces to integrate with the forces of the Syrian Ministry of Defense, and that integration should happen in a way that maintains the integrity of the SDF units, including a battalion of female soldiers. This will be an important symbol to the world. I think there may be future celebrations next year. It will be the 2-year anniversary of the liberation from Assad, and I believe it will be important next year for the Syrian Democratic Forces to have celebrations and have soldiers marching in the parade in Damascus and Darak and Dara and Deir ez-Zor, because this country would not be free from ISIS and it would not be free from Assad if it were not for the great brave warriors of the Syrian Democratic Forces, YPG, YPJ.